Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to do a trailer breakdown for the new FX miniseries, A Christmas Carol, based off of Charles Dickens' famous book, A Christmas Carol, and probably the umpteenth adaptation of that book. But this kind of drew me in just because it was done by the same guys that did, it's produced by Tom Hardy and Ridley Scott. It's also, I believe, also a producer from Peaky Blinders is doing this as well, and it stars Guy Pearce, who I enjoy, and Andy Serkis. So it seems like it's a welcome departure in terms of the tone. It's a lot darker of a tone than we're used to seeing with this story. Again, a lot of the times it's aimed at kids. You can look at like the Jim Carrey animated version, the Muppet version, even the George C. Scott version is really not is fairly tame. This seems a lot darker and a lot more messed up. Now, it is a teaser, so it's only about a little over a minute of actual footage, but it's enough to give you an idea and a feel for everything. And again, we all know A Christmas Carol. It's probably Dickens' most famous story that's ever been adapted, and it's something that I think we all know the story of. Ebenezer Scrooge, and he gets visited by the ghost of his friend Jacob Marley, and he gets visited by the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, and then he's a changed man and all this stuff, and we get to see his life, how it is unfolded. And it's all meant to kind of be a feel-good story by the end of it. But again, this is very interesting. So Guy Pearce is the one who is playing Ebenezer Scrooge in this adaptation. And we go into this trailer and we start seeing, again, this appears to be keeping true with the time period that the story was written in, where it appears to be like late 1800s London, or at least England. Again, all the actors in it are English. And we see there's a monologue that starts going over, which I believe is being done by Andy Serkis. And the monologue starts talking about how Ebenezer is going to see all the evils that he's done and things like that. This could also be Robert Marley. I mean, not Robert Marley, Jacob Marley as well, his ghost mixed in there, because they do kind of sound a little similar in terms of the story, but we do get to see glimpses of both of those characters, as well as, I believe, the ghost of Christmas present. I don't know if we see the ghost of Christmas future. There is one that we see that has its mouth sewn shut. That might be the ghost of Christmas future, or Christmas yet to come. But we go through these London streets, and we kind of see all these little flashes of like, there's people, burning stuff in the street. There's people in chains, and you see Ebenezer Scrooge kind of walking through as this monologue is going on. There's some kind of creepy singing going on in the background too. Some of it's kind of inaudible, but it's talking about like lighting a lamp and stuff like that. It's kind of weird. But again, it gives kind of this eerie tone to everything, which very much works. But we really see kind of these violent things, and we get to see kind of the atmosphere of everything. And then eventually it moves forward. We see the Ghost of Christmas Present, and one of the more famous scenes from A Christmas Carol, where Ebenezer Scrooge looks in on his secretary, Bob Cratchit, and his son, Tiny Tim. And Tiny Tim appears to be bedridden, very sick, and he doesn't appear to be doing very well. And we don't see the reaction to this scene, but we do see him looking through a window. And that, again, this could be cut in kind of a weird way, but that's how it's portrayed. And the Ghost of Christmas Present is kind of just hanging out in the background. But again, that's a very interesting scene. But again, then we move forward from that, and we start seeing some of these other. It goes kind of into like a bit of a clip show. We see like Ebenezer with his fiance when he was younger, which again in the story is, because he was so dedicated to his career and to making money, it eventually turned into a loveless relationship, and she left him. And we see that where she grabs his hand and stuff, and again it's kind of like that. They do show a weird thing in the middle there where they show what appears to be a camera or a picture show. It's kind of like the old silent films, which again would mean this would that would be far, far in the future compared to this, because that wouldn't be until the 1920s or so. So maybe this is happening around then. Maybe they've moved it, but it appears for the most part, they have horse-drawn carriages and stuff. It appears for the most part that it's set in the in the late 1800s, like the book. But maybe this is like, when he sees the future and stuff like that, and when he goes to find his grave and things like that, like what they do in the story. But so they do that, and then we kind of, again, we see some of these other shots. We see a shot of what looks like Tiny Tim falling through the ice over a pond, and he's like drifting down in the water. And maybe this is how he got sick. It's a possibility, because maybe that has something to do with the scene where we see him there. And it goes on, and we see there's a scene of Ebenezer being dragged behind a carriage, and a lot of scenes of people in chains and bondage. Again, the not Robert. I keep saying Robert Marley. The Jacob Marley ghost. Generally he's portrayed as having all these chains on him because he's being dragged down by all the sins that he had in life, and I like the tone of this. I like the tone because it's something different. It's something we haven't necessarily seen before. They don't go into such great, it has a horror theme to it, which I like, because it is a ghost story. It's a story about these spirits visiting this old man at night and trying to show him the error of his ways, and it makes sense. That you could make that creepy. Again, most of the time it's played as like a children's story. But if you want to play it for adults, I think this is a good idea. And again, this is something we haven't seen before. We haven't seen it with most of the other adaptations. Some of them do get kind of creepy, but they don't go for the full horror vibe. This feels like a full horror vibe. And the other thing is, I love the color palette of it, because the color palette is a lot of grays and dark blues and blacks. It makes it very, very melancholy. It makes it very kind of depressing. It's kind of like Picasso during his blue period. All the paintings kind of have that kind of depressing feel to them. That's what this feels like, and I have a funny feeling that's just kind of be that matches the tone of this, where everything is very depressing. And then I'm sure that they'll try to color it up near the end of it, if when he comes back and comes to his senses and changes as a person. But ultimately, I like this. I did like this. I find this interesting. It is a miniseries. It's going to be coming out this December on FX. So if you want to catch it, you can catch it on there. I'm sure they'll have it on some streaming service. But I want to know what you think. As usual, I will link the trailer in the description below if you would like to see it. But I want to know what you think. Are you excited for kind of a different sort of take on A Christmas Carol? Are you kind of married to the older version or the book? Put your thoughts in the comments. Again, I'd like to know what you're thinking. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?